If you have an interest in photography but you haven't yet taken the plunge, we're going to share a few tips from the experts on what to think about before getting started. Sure, there are no hard and fast rules, but there are a couple of things worth bearing in mind.
Your claim to fame is what you allowed inside the frame. Outside the frame doesn't matter. आपने उस frame की हदूद के अंदर क्या आने दिया है, और उस आने का मतलब ये होता है कि आपने किसको photograph किया, and did you add anything, or did you isolate the detail, or did you, pull back to get everything, or did you isolate? And it's not only about what subject matter you allowed, but the combination of elements that happen when you take that subject. For example, the light, the time of the day, the film. There are just so many things, material-wise, subject-wise, element-wise, that contribute to that frame that you can literally make or break it.
The photographer has a rectangle, a viewfinder, which he sees situations. There are two things happening. One, he's documenting a certain reality or a certain perspective which he thinks is interesting. It could be anything. The second thing is how that perspective is placed in that viewfinder.
And often, you don't need a fantastic landscape or a breathtaking scene to take a good picture. Even in the most ordinary circumstances, the photographer's eye can seize a good composition with good light and capture the scene.
In the final outcome, and that's all that counts. I don't care if the photographer was hanging upside down to take the picture. I'm only interested in what happened in that frame. And in that frame, you need to know if the photographer, one, does it evoke an emotion? So I need to be intrigued by the image. That's my first thing. Second of all, when I'm intrigued by the image, does it contain me? Do I look at it wanting more? Do I look at an image and say, this is so interesting, I want to go inside the image and want to discover this place? Or do I look at it and say, no, this is, it's interesting to look at, but then I would ignore it.
The composition is here, it's not in the equipment. The artist, when he composes a painting, the composition comes from here. The capturing of the moment and the geometry involved and the use of light can make it an artistic moment.
Photographers are in the business of seizing the moment, but it takes some amount of perseverance. They don't call it shooting a picture for nothing, because most good images take some serious hunting.
You do stalk an image. That's one thing you need to know. One thing you need to know is if you're in the environment and you need to be taking, say, a photograph of something happening around you, you need to be aware of your surroundings, and that's really important, because a photographer has to have eyes behind his head so that he doesn't miss the image. To capture the right image at the right time is quintessential. Now, to stalk an image, you just have to learn a little about human nature. I mean, if you're photographing a person and you're waiting for them to do this, act or a certain thing, you just need to know, preempt what's going to happen and be ready for it. And that's how war photographers work. They know that a bomb is going to fall at X place, so they hang on until it happens. And fine, we're not for war photographers, but even then we're preempting human nature.
And the experts tell us the more pictures we see, the better we become at seeing a picture worth taking.
Some people are just naturally gifted, and some people you train. And I think that if you are seeing a lot of work, a lot of artists, a lot of photographers, the sharper your edge becomes, the sharper, because you learn to filter and you realize that, I've seen so much work and I haven't seen something like this. So then you realize how isolated or it's personal or how unique it is. And the only way that's going to be possible is that you completely harass your eyes with a bombardment of imagery and educate yourself.
People often say that photography is easier to get into now than ever before. Especially with digital cameras, we get to shoot as much as we want and we don't have to wait for the results. But giving into this kind of convenience can also have its drawbacks.
One of the things that you notice people do is they instantly look behind the camera. Now, I'll tell you, this is from personal experience, and it was because I got angry with myself, what the hell happened to me, and that's when I realized that, okay, control yourself. You take a photograph, you look at the LCD. You take a photograph, you look at the LCD. Now, life is happening in front of you. It's not going to pause while you look at the LCD and then go back to reality. So actually, film was very helpful there because you just shot the roll and gave it to the lab and you concentrated on life in front of you. You weren't obsessed. I mean, you knew your apertures and shutter speed and you knew that you're all right because you had your light meter, etc. You didn't need the security blanket of an LCD to tell you, okay, you got your photograph. And I think you miss moments when you break away for, self-assurance.
I think it's a very funny thing, okay, that a person takes a picture and then immediately, holds the camera down to see what's happened. When, a few years back you couldn't do that and you just waited for the image. But I don't think that's changed anything. It's changed that you're a fool because you're looking down at your image, but you should be taking another picture instead. For people who are new, and people who have just started keeping cameras, yes, it's a fabulous thing. You can see, improve, learn on the job. Just imagine you're walking with your own tutor. It's telling you this is a bad picture, reshoot it, and you have that ability. You don't have to go home, develop your film, come back and get a danda by your professor and say, take these pictures again. You have your tutor in your hand.
Well, we hope we've given you enough to chew on until next week when we take a more in-depth look at the art of photography, with a special focus on some antique methods still being used to develop pictures. And we'll also be looking at photographers as painters and painters as photographers. That's all from us at The Looking Glass this week. I'm Saira Akhtar. But before we wrap up, here's one last tip for all aspiring photographers out there. Until next week, happy clicking.
अगर आप 1000 तस्वीरों में एक तस्वीर आला खींच लेते हैं, it was a bloody accident. Accidents don't count. मगर आप 50 तस्वीरें या खींचते हैं और उसमें आपकी 40 सही आई हैं, then you've hit the nail. Any idiot can take 1,000 pictures. Shoot the damn digital camera like a machine gun. Yes, you will eventually hit someone, but if someone's going to tell you, okay, ये तस्वीर अच्छी आई है, दोबारा जाके खींचो, तो वो फिर अकल सियाणी नजर आ जाती है ना.